started in after qualifying. In fact, it looks like he's got a move going up to the Vidal chicane up the inside. I think he's possibly just got ahead of Mac Backham, and Alejandro Sanchez under pressure from Max Benecchi as they now turn sharp left and head towards the Hatzenbach and this roller coaster 1930s safety standards Nordschleife.
This is where it starts getting a little bit tight. The road's narrowed down now. It's pretty much a single line through this first part. It's not until after floodplaats where you can maybe think about going side by side heading in through Schadenkreuze, but really through there you've got to be brave and have the cooperation of the driver that you're alongside there. But these drivers, they're abusing the curbs, but you don't want to hit some of those curbs because they are lethal.
And that's so much an experience thing as well. You'll learn that by firing the car off into the barriers when you're practicing, on your own or with your teammates. So you've got to know where it is safe to use the curbs and where it is not. Alejandro Sanchez looking for a third place move here, sweeping around as we head on the early part of this long lap. They were qualifying at 8.25 minutes. So it'll be a sort of 8-minute 25, maybe 8-minute 30 race lap, because of course they are all slowing each other up. On board now, and right in front of us is Max Benecchi. So we're with Sebastian Job, the championship leader. And Paul, as you say, you do need a degree of cooperation from the driver in front, whether that is because you've put your nose in and he wants to survive as well, or whether he makes a mistake. That sort of unintended cooperation, that's often the only way that drivers are going to find a way through.
Yeah, this is just the ultimate challenge of patience, is this track, because you'll be behind a driver and you think, come on, I'm faster than you, and you just can't get past, and then all of a sudden you head to one of these high-speed sections, especially after Bergwerk heading up towards Muttkurv, and you've got that opportunity, you've got that slipstream, but especially up the hill there, again, you've still got to have that cooperation because it is so narrow around this track. And these drivers, they are the best on iRacing, they are the best in sim racing, and that's why they're here, and I'm sure that they'll give us a tremendous show around here.
And of course, for so many of them, it is going to be about patience and making sure that you're in the right position as you come out of Schwalbenschwanz, out of the mini carousel, and head onto the mile-long Dottinger, because that's where this slipstreaming queue will really show who knows how to use the air and who doesn't. Max Benecchi 11 with the orange highlights, and behind him, as they plunge down the hill at Adenau over the bridge and start the long, breathless, power-sapping climb. It goes on for about 2 miles up this hill. Sebastian Job looking to pull out again. He's through on the inside, but this is not a corner. This is just a long, flat-out blind, and right behind, trying to ride his luck, is Josh Rogers. Which horse is he going to back in this battle up the hill? They're both giving him a tow. He's getting the tow between them and off each of them. But I think Sebastian Job might just have done enough. Long series of lefts here, and he squeezes his nose in front. You have to have your courage in both hands, Paul.
Yeah, you do, and he's got to be careful not to, because he's now giving a slipstream to both drivers, but heading in towards Muttkurv, or Bravery as it's known by some people, it's absolutely, seat of your pants stuff, as Job was just a little bit wide on the exit there, almost in the grass, and that grass, it will just send you off into the barriers around here. Luckily, they don't have to pay the insurance fee, but heading up towards the carousel for the first time.
The race still being led by our pole man, Patrick Holtzman. This might be a first win of the season for him if he can hold it together. It's 3 laps here in this sprint race and 4 in the main race. And again, Max Benecchi coming under pressure. He doesn't have the straight line speed, does he, of Sebastian Job or of Josh Rogers, who's behind him now, because Job is pulling away despite giving the tow to Benecchi and Rogers, and Job is starting to close down the car in front of him. His championship rival, Alejandro Sanchez. So Rogers now has to force a way through, doesn't he?
I tell you what, it's round 2 between these two. After last time out at Spa, they've got previous after the shenanigans that happened last week. So I don't think a week is enough for these drivers to forget. But it'll be smart of Rogers to not push too hard, especially through this bit. You could see how aggressive Beneco was being in defending after the carousel. He knew he wanted to keep Rogers behind him. That's what he's doing right now.
Absolutely right. And you have to be aggressive through here as well, but you, as the car is basically jumping from peak to peak, you've just got to be a little bit cautious. Looking here, 49, Jamie Fluke, Apex Racing driver. And this is the battle for 17th, 18th place. 16th in front of him is Christopher Dambeats. 18th behind him, David Williams. And they're in about the same position with Jared Frizzell behind them last week. They were all in the same sort of little clump of cars through both races at Spa as well.
I tell you what, they've just been through the Bella Fest. That is my favourite section to drive of this track. It's high speed, you're coming over undulations, over blind crests, and it's just sensational to go through that section. So flowing is this final third of the lap, and then you're heading off through Galgenkopf down onto this, the Dottingerhof for the first time.
Yeah, this is basically the Autobahn, isn't it? It's fast, it's wide, it's open, and it is slipstream central. And Sebastian Job is towing up behind the top four, so it's now a top five. Look for Josh Rogers behind the orange and white car, Max Benecki. He can't go too early, he won't make it through. Oh, Mitchell de Jong, who's going with him? Alejandro Sanchez. And Benecki has got Josh Rogers coming a long way around the outside of him. He's through Antonio Spuscher and then down hard on the brakes in Tiergarten, and Benecki all over the road. And that was an open goal for Josh Rogers as long as they avoid him, and Rogers is in the barriers.
2 weeks in a row, Benecki and Rogers make contact. I think that one was a bit more of a racing instant though than the week before.
Yeah. Well, that was Max Benecki, wasn't he? He got onto the grass, went straight through in Tiergarten, and it was never going to stop. The only question was, where was that unguided missile going to come back on? And inevitably, the way Josh Rogers has been going this season, of course it hit him. Of course it did.
It is the worst feeling as well when you're driving that car and you're ended up across the grass. You're just mashing the brake pedal as hard as you can, or even possibly lifting off the brake pedal to get the wheels moving so you can turn it to direct the car differently. But yeah, absolute drama here into Tiergarten. In fact, we'll get the replay of it then from the Vodafone replay. There you see Benecki and Rogers side by side heading in towards Tiergarten then. And this is very tricky. You can go too wide through there. Ooh, there's one wide did Benecki onto the grass. And the car just comes forward right across the grass and bang, T-bone into Josh Rogers.
Yeah. I mean, really tough for Rogers. He did nothing wrong there. He did everything right. It was clean. There was no contact. Benecki outbraked himself. 2 wheels on the grass. And that's the end of it. You know, the speed they're doing that they have to scrub off there isn't scrub offable on grass. It's just never happening. And actually, Josh Rogers, doubly unfortunate because Benecki very nearly slammed into the barriers on the driver's right, which would have sent him in an entirely different direction. And actually, probably he'd have clattered off Mac Backham, who was half a car length behind Josh Rogers. As it is, Mac Backham is still in the race. And Josh Rogers, well, he rejoined. He's down in 17th. But with taking a wallop like that, I can't imagine the car is going to be entirely pleasant to drive. And, you know, it's not the Grand Prix circuit we're lapping. It's the Nordschleife. If it takes off, he's got no way of knowing how it's going to land.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is. He'll be feeling that down the straights. I can tell you from experience that damage to his car will be affecting him significantly along the high-speed stuff, and he'll be a sitting duck around here.
Yeah, and you know, he can't afford to be giving away points or losing points at this point of the season. Alejandro Sanchez, whatever happened with his appeal, good news for him. He's still in 4th. He's still gaining a few gaps on Sebastian Job. Let's take a look.
This is Phil Sell then,
Yep.
the Apex Racing Team driver. And the man from Australia, side by side. Oh, just the slightest of contact, it fires him off. Oh, he's gonna. Well, look at that avoiding action.
Oh.
Oh, and just contact from the. I think that would have been Matt Perez that would have hit him there. Graham Carroll took a great avoiding action there to avoid him as well, coming back on.
Yeah, whether that was luck or judgment, I think we'll have to possibly give that afterwards. Jared Filzel is out. Ricardo Castro-Ledo is out. He was a top 10 qualifier. Jack Sedgwick, Tommy Usgaard. So, and Alexei Usiakala, who had to start at the back of the field, he is still in 27th place. Max Benecki shown is still continuing, Paul, but, you know, to what end? I suppose any positions he can pick up now might make him closer to the points in the main race. But here's our race leader, Patrick Holtzman. Don't forget, Holtzman was looking very racy at Spa as well. Just a little bit overdrove, though, didn't he? Resulting in contact and didn't do anybody any favours. And Kevin Ellis Jr. and Mitchell de Jong were both in podium positions early on in Spa as well.
That was Holtzman. I can tell you now, he's been practicing not just in this car, but in other cars around this track as well. He was in a race that I was doing on the iRacing in one of the official series in iRacing that you can participate in. You find yourself in races with World Championship drivers, and that's what I found. And yeah, he's been practicing whatever he can get his hands on around this track just to get as much track experience around here as possible, because that knowledge, even if it is in a different car, certainly counts towards your races here today.
And he's really on a roll as well. Kevin Ellis Jr. likewise, both races in Spa, the sprint and the main race, were won by Sebastian Jobe. Second in both, Kevin Ellis Jr. So that was his weekend of the season, but he's in second place again. I mean, it's deja vu all over for him because he's behind a Red Bull car once more. This time, though, it's Patrick Holtzman. Mitchell de Jong in third, Alejandro Sanchez in fourth. We're looking further back at Josh Rogers, no, that's probably Zelensky, isn't it? The 83 car in the middle of that little group. He's trying to chase down single set source ahead of him, the predominantly white car, and just keep his nose ahead of Christopher Dambeats, Jamie Fluke, David Williams, and Josh Rogers in that with Dane Warren behind him, who has got power this weekend, and Valtteri Arlanda is the tail end Charlie there.
I could see Carl Janssen dropping down my timing screen, so he's had something happen to him. He's back up and running now. He's not had a good second half to this season as Carl. He's had a bit of a nightmare, and it's not just for the championship, remember. The top 20 qualify for next year's season. So yeah, it's all about getting yourself into that top 20 as well.
And right now, 20th Josh Anderson, 2 points ahead of Mitchell de Jong, but that will change after this race. Well, it's changed after, hasn't changed after qualifying, but it will change after this race if nothing else changes, because Mitchell de Jong currently running in third position. So that will put him into the top 20 and push the Aussie out. And in fact, the next car ahead, Johan Hart, is 30 points clear of them. So it may end up being a battle between the two of them this weekend and the next. And Jared Filzel would be the next driver up. He is only 5 points behind Josh Anderson. So it is very close. And Patrick Holtzman 1 point behind him. Mark Perez 3 points behind him. There's a very tight group at the bottom of the top 20 in our standings, with the Nordschleife, Le Mans and Monza only remaining. So, yeah, getting your position tied down for next year is definitely going to be a big focus.
Yeah, certainly is, as we've got battles at the front and a little bit further down in your top 10 as well. Alexander Thieber, Martin Krunke, Joshua Anderson, as you mentioned there, who's trying to get himself some good points. 11th place at the moment. You just see that huge queue of cars behind Thieber. He is just he seems to be a little bit of a cork in the bottle, it seems, between these drivers. But when he gets onto that Dottinger Heuer, that's where we'll see whether the slipstream will come into effect for those cars behind him.
And, you know, we'll talk about this again as we did in Spa when we get to Le Mans. You know, for the fast corners, for the twisty stuff, you need a bit of aero, but then you pay for it on the Dottinger Heuer in spades. So you've got to run the car as low drag as is humanly possible, but then it'll be terrifying for almost the entire rest of the lap. And that's a really tough balance to strike. 28, Alexander Thieber, leading that little third group. Just behind Johan Hart in 8th place, but the lead quintet still Holtzman, Ellis Jr., De Jong, Sanchez and Job.
Now Job was having a look at Sanchez towards Tiergarten, so he's determined to get ahead of his other championship rival here as Sebastian. He wants to get as much gap as possible. You've got to take these opportunities when they come to you, haven't you? As he looks to the inside, it's a chicane though, so it's going to come into the favour of Sanchez in the second. They'll give each other space, but Job can get on the power. He can get on the power and get the drive off of the corner here.
Yeah, Sanchez just needs to try and block him, but he can't, so Job is up to 4th. Sanchez was closing the points gap on lap 1 and lap 2. Lap 3, the gap will open again. Sebastian Job moves ahead of the man who might end up being his closest championship rival. At the moment, that man is Josh Rogers, but he is down in 18th place and really in danger, you think, of dropping out of the points. In the sprint race, the points only go to 20th. Josh Rogers, Valtteri Alander, Jeff Chiassi, who's really not qualified well, Mark Perez, Brian Lockwood behind. You know, he could end up with a 0 here.
Dave Warren gaining sensational amount of positions in this race here. And Dane, the number 57 car, up to 17th ahead of Josh Rogers. And well, Dane has moved teams this season. There you go, started 31st up to 17th. So sensational effort for the man who put 50p in the meter this week and got himself some electricity. No, we joke about that, but it is unfortunate when these sorts of things happen. But we see it in real life as well. Cars don't take to the start.
Exactly right, exactly right. Yeah, talk to Nico Hulkenberg about that. Yeah, do all the hard work, qualify, and then the car won't leave the pit lane. So, last lap then, Patrick Holtzman, Kevin Ellis Jr., Mitchell de Jong now the man under pressure. Can Sebastian Job finish on the podium here? The answer is yes, he can. Will he, though? Can he get by Mitchell de Jong? My feeling is he's close enough now that all he needs to do is sit there and wait for the dotting of her. And don't forget that Alejandro Sanchez will be behind him. It's just possible, if Sanchez can stay close enough as we ride on board with the Spaniard, that he might get by Mitchell de Jong as well and move up to 4th. And that will leave Josh Rogers in all sorts of trouble. Rogers still in 18th place, but he's only 6/10 ahead of Valtteri Alander. Jeff Chiassi in 20th is 3.7 seconds behind them. So it looks as though Josh Rogers should, if nothing breaks on the car, finish potentially in 18th or 19th, I think is more likely. But the battle at the front is going to be just as thrilling, because just sitting behind and waiting for Dottinger Her doesn't really do the Nordschleife justice in terms of how much of a challenge it is. I mean, look at this, flat out, foot to the boards, nearly 600 horsepower, downhill, plummeting into the valleys. I mean, this is just a sensationally terrifying track.
It is a pure roller coaster, isn't it? It really is. It's the best thrill ride you can get on 4 wheels. I think here Kevin Ellis Jr. has played a very smart game here. He's waiting patiently, waiting for his opportunity. We know how quick Holtzman can be around here, but Ellis Jr. is in that prime position to maybe make a move on the Dottinger Her on the final lap, but he needs to get that run off of the corner of Galgenkopf going onto the Dottinger Her before he can get that done. But further down, still battling tooth and nail down here for 13.
Yeah, from 83, Bobby Zelensky, what are we looking at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cars nailed together on a very short piece of elastic. That's not going to be a slipstreaming fest down the Dottinger Her on the final lap or anything, is it?
Oh, no, not at all.
and leading that train, luckily for Bobby Zelensky, he's almost close enough to Sindre Setsaus and the 2 cars ahead of him that he's getting a decent tow as well. Here come the leaders over the bridge and now starting this monumental climb. And that, you know, that is just a super extended Paddock Hill bend down and up to Druids the other side, but instead of being a couple of 100 meters, it's miles long. Yeah, well, Bobby Zelensky, Christopher Dambeats, That's the little battle you're watching from above.
I mean, the cameras never give you justice as to how undulating and how much elevation change there is around this track. You have to see it to believe it around here, and this is as close as you'll get without actually getting into your car, driving several hundred kilometers to the Nürburgring and getting yourself on the track here. So these drivers, look at Ellis Jr. right up to the back of Holtzman, as Sanchez is actually getting left behind a little bit.
He is a little bit, and Mitchell de Jong was right behind Kevin Ellis Jr., 2 or 3 corners ago, and then suddenly, I'm not sure if Kevin Ellis was slightly distracted, just got in a little hot behind Patrick Holtzman. Luckily, there was room for him, as he shot right up behind him. And we might end up, as we drop down into the Caracciola Carousel, with Holtzman and Ellis, and then de Jong and Job. Sanchez is back with Sebastian Job. He's as close to Job as Job is to de Jong in the red and white car in front of him.
Oh, Job!
Oh!
That's not really an overtaking spot into there, right there. That is a big brave pill needed to make that move stick, and thankfully Job thought better and just backed out of that one.
Well, you sort of wonder whether some of these little lunges aren't actually lunges, but they're the driver in front just using slightly different line. Here we go. It's starting to get very busy here. And this is where you do not want to be a passenger with somebody else pressing on, because this is just terrifyingly fast. The car is bouncing around. It's hopping and skipping from ripple to bump to jump. Air underneath the wheels rather than tarmac. And you are just so aware of how close the barriers are. I mean, look at the runoff area. It wasn't much in the 30s. It's even less now because the cars are going even quicker than they would have been there.
Into there, you've got to hit your brakes just slightly before you go over the jump, or else if you hit your brakes mid-air, you're firing off into a barrier. But look at this, just the way it dives down into the Belle S here. It's just the way you're going from curb to curb. It is an absolutely sensational ride here.
Absolutely. It's just such a fabulous racetrack, such a challenge for the car as much as the man. Really demands phenomenal traction and poise, great damping, great handling from the car. Otherwise, it will just spit you off. Out of the Schwalbenschwanz, the mini carousel, and then heading out onto Dottingerhut. And Patrick Holtzman is clear of Kevin Ellis Jr. The red and white car, Mitchell de Jong, might be the one under threat for third place. I don't think Alejandro Sanchez is going to get to Sebastian Job. We're looking back from the leader, and he's meandering from hard shoulder to the central reservation. Sanchez has dropped out of the tail of this, but watch the car in fourth place. Sebastian Job, where is the snake's tail going to let him go by? He's close to Mitchell de Jong. He's very close to Mitchell de Jong. Too early. He's getting a side draft as well, but he's having to go the long way round. Is he going to have an overlap? Will Mitchell de Jong see him? Kevin Ellis Jr. trying to haul in Patrick Holtzman. It's not going to happen for Sebastian Job. Through Antonius Porsche and down into the Tiergarten. They come from a roughly 190-mile-an-hour top speed over the bridge and heading towards the checkered flag. It's going to be a blanket finish. Holtzman, Ellis Jr., de Jong the podium, Sebastian Job, crucial points in fourth place. No, Sanchez shown, no, it's correcting itself again. Job fourth, Sanchez in fifth, and we're waiting for the rest of them to stream across the line. We just saw Jeff Chiassi coming across, and then behind him, ooh, who's that? Somebody in the barrage.
That's Carl Janssen, is it again? Number 29. Yep, Carl Janssen.
Yeah.
Oh, he's had a nightmare. He's already been off once already this race, and then before the Kleiner Carousel, is off again.
Well, it looks like he's got quite a lot of damage from the first time off. You can imagine that, can't you? So, Josh Rogers, 18th. Valtteri Arlander didn't get to him. He was half a second behind at the line, so about a car's distance between them. And Jeff Chiassi rounded out the top 20. So Josh Rogers, 18th position in the sprint race, the grand total of 2 points from the race. There is your runners and riders, the classified pools check. Winner Patrick Holtzman, second place for Kevin Ellis Jr., and third for Mitchell de Jong. 3 different teams, 3 different nationalities. Sebastian Job, fourth place, ahead of Alejandro Sanchez McBackham. And rounding out the top 10, Alexander Tiber and Martin Kroenke. So just behind them, Josh Anderson scores well, 11th place, into Setsource, and the rest of that queue behind him, down to Josh Rogers in 18th place. 2 points for him. 3 points for him, 2 for Valtteri Allender, and 1 for Jeff Giassi at the tail of the top 20. And that, of course, is how they will start for race 2. Now, hopefully, we might get a little chance to chat to one of our drivers in between times. Meanwhile, Connery, that was pretty much what you might expect from a top-flight Porsche race. All right, we'll take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back here for some post-race analysis and the main feature here at the Nordschleife of the Nürburgring. Stay with us.
Well, the GT4s do equal fun, like we saw on that iRacing advertisement of the 718 Cayman on the iRacing surface. But if you ask me, the 911 GT3 Cup cars gave us some fantastic action as well. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to round number 8 of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. I'm Connery Maddock, and with Paul Smith here bringing you through the mid-event analysis here. We've just had the sprint race of 3 laps here of the combined layout at the Nürburgring. And once again, Paul, it was one, well, not quite packed with drama, but we did have a very dramatic moment.
Yeah, carrying on from last week, it appears. We'll get another look at this one then between Rogers and Benecke, because those two, they seem to be connected at the hip rather a lot these last couple of weeks. Here we go then, the replay coming up on screen. So we're looking from overhead at the moment. It's Rogers to your right, Benecke to the left, and it's headed in towards Tiergarten. And this, it all gets a little bit tight. You both want to come together, and Benecke just loses the back end a little bit onto the grass. There's very little you can do right now, and bang, just T-bones into the side of Rogers. We'll get another look at this one in just a second as well from a different angle. But really, you're a passenger. Here we are then from behind. This is Matt Backham's view of the incident, and Martin mentioned about how close Backham was to being collected there, and onto the brakes, bang, around he goes. And Backham was very lucky in that incident as well.
Yeah, he was a very, very lucky driver indeed to get through that one unscathed. As unfortunately, though, his championship contender teammate of Joshua Rogers getting collected in that one. But let's have a little bit of a look at the schedule then. We are deep into the season at the moment. You can see we're on round number 8, and then after this, just 2 more rounds to go. Le Mans, and then we have the grand finale October 10th at Monza to decide our champion. And well, with that sprint race in the books, Paul, it's Sebastian Job must be rubbing his hands together.
Yeah, but he can't relax. He needs to keep it up. He needs to keep the pressure on and keep pushing, because yeah, that sprint race, as you see the format of how these races work here, that sprint race was 3 laps. You're only getting 1 lap extra in this feature race, which of course they'll be starting where they finished in that sprint race. But Job, he needs to keep that pressure up. He needs to keep going, because as soon as you relax around this track, that is when you make mistakes. So he's got to push all the way through to the end of this race, but he doesn't need to do any rash moves here.
Yeah, that's going to be the main thing for him. He has a very comfortable points buffer at the moment, and as if he didn't into this race, it just is more exacerbated now after that sprint race is in the books. You saw all that congestion up at the very front as well. Credit to Patrick Holtzman for taking the sprint race win here today. He had quite a task trying to hold a bunch of those angry piranhas behind him coming down the Dong Ho for the final time. He had just enough of a gap coming out of the corner proceeding, and to be able to hold on to that. And I have to guess as well, it was a slight element of drivers wanting to keep their starting positions for the main race as well, which is why we didn't see side by side 2 rows deep into the final corner in the last lap there.
Yeah, but I will say it is a great result for Patrick Holtzman, who's not had the best of seasons. But look at this now, 2 weeks in a row. Kevin Ellis Jr. right up there in that podium position once again. He seems to have hit a rich vein of form, and that Apex Racing team have got him dialed into that car. And they'll be hoping that some more of his compatriots are able to join him up at the front of the field. But Kevin, he's doing a really good job of it so far at this point of the season. They need to keep it up, and you never know. One little thing happens, and he could end up with the winner's laurels at the end of this race.
Well, as we get swapped over from our little warm-up session into the main racing event, I'll step aside and bring Martin Haven back into the fold here for the starting grid.
Thank you, Connery. Yeah, it's going to be very, very close. Sebastian Job extending his championship advantage. He got 8 points for qualifying second fastest, plus 25 for winning at race 1. And beg your pardon, he was fourth in race one. So he is still the championship leader. Patrick Holtzman, Kevin Ellis, Mitchell de Jong with a podium in race one ahead of Sebastian Job, Alejandro Sanchez and Mac Backham. So they will start in the top half dozen. Bottom of the top 10, we saw Alexander Tieber and Martin Krunker there on row 5 of the grid ahead of Josh Anderson, who's battling for a position in the top 20. He's one of 5 drivers covered by just 7 points coming in here, looking for that final spot in the top 20 that guarantees them a place in next year's Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. And a long way down the order, 18th position, and just past him, Josh Rogers, the reigning champion, scored just a couple of points. He also got the maximum points out of qualifying, but it will be just a couple of points between him and Alejandro Sanchez for second in the standings. We are going again then. On pole position, the Red Bull car, Patrick Holtzman, Kevin Ellis Jr. and Mitchell de Jong ahead of Sebastian Job. But will Job get a good enough start to pick up a position on the run down to the first corner? We're using the Gesamtstrecke, the whole of the Grand Prix track and Nordschleife, the 24-hour layout. Job on the outside, trying to use that long radius curve to get the momentum to go ahead of Mitchell de Jong, and he does. So Job's up to third already, and there was a change for the lead as well there. So a great start from Kevin Ellis Jr. He's had 3 second places in the last 3 starts. Can he make it a win?
Well, that's what he'll be hoping for, but leading into turn 1 is one thing. You've got to be leading at the checkered flag, so the pressure will be on him here from Patrick Holtzman. Now, the question is Holtzman going to help Sebastian to be able to move ahead, to help him gain more points in this championship? As we're getting into that final phase, yes, there's no team's championship, so that doesn't come into matters, but the teammates will want to help each other out.
And they are in the same building racing together. There's no question that they will have had that conversation before the race started, that if there is an opportunity to let Seb go by, that I'm sure will happen. Will he give him the win if it's a question of being first or second? That may not be something he's asked to do, but we're a long way from that. 98, Kevin Ellis Jr. from the 2 Red Bull cars, Patrick Holtzman, Sebastian Job, Mitchell de Jong, 4th ahead of Alejandro Sanchez. Everybody else flicking through the chicane as they start to climb up the hill, over the brow, and then dropping down. Instead of going right on the Grand Prix circuit, we go left into the Hatzenbach and through into the green hell.
I don't know whether I'm seeing things, but my timing screen, Joshua Rogers up to 14th already. What a start from 18th on the grid, 4 positions gained. He's currently battling, you see him on screen there, with Christopher Dambeets, but that's a sensational start, making the most of that nice wide Grand Prix section.
Yeah, and he really needs to, doesn't he? You know, he barely was in the points in race 1. He can't allow the others to get any further ahead. As of now, the reigning champion is dropping back to 3rd in the championship. So unless something befalls Job and Sanchez, he'll go away from here in 3rd spot. It'll be a close 3rd spot with Sanchez, but every single start that they make, oh, who is that off at the side?
Setsource.
Setsource. Okay, so that was just ahead of Josh Rogers. We're now chasing Christopher Dambeets again. Yeah, he just can't afford to have those problems, can he? There's the number 3 car, Christopher Dambeets, just ahead of him. It's Sindre Setsource rather, just ahead of him is Mark Perez, and Perez is off in the barriers. One of the few gravel traps. He's off at Arnberg.
It's a notorious place to go off as well, as you're going at such a high rate of knots going into that corner, and you hit the brakes and then you realise, oh, I haven't got enough brakes on this car, and you just head straight for the gravel trap of the outfield.
Yeah. And exactly why it's there, isn't it? For just that reason. Right now, Kevin Ellis Jr., you're waiting for the axe to fall, aren't you? You've got these teammates behind who you know are going to gang up on you. And the question is just when is it? Chances are it's not on the Nordschleife itself, but on the Dossingerhöhe. Well, let's see what happens to Sindre Setsource here. Right. Oh dear. Oh dear.
That could have been a lot worse. That really could have been a lot worse. That well held. I mean, yeah, he got a bit of help from the barrier there, but getting out onto the grass on the exit of flood flats, that is a real change of underpants moment, is that?
Proper code brown. 4 kilometers into the lap and you're already in the barriers. You know, that is tough, isn't it? Go out the foxhole, starting the climb. But again, there's so much elevation change. From its lowest point to its highest, this track rises 1,000 meters. That's a massive, that's 3,300 feet of elevation change. You do not find that anywhere other than mountaineering or on the Tour de France. Here's the battle for second. Patrick Holtzman, 27. Teammate Sebastian Job, 22, is now actively looking for a way by.
Well, I feel it's going to be a matter of time as to when Sebastian makes his way past, as, well, they're not going to make that move into Braver as we look at the replay then, and this is the replay of Set Source getting into the back of Marc Perez, so that's why Marc Perez ended up in the wall.
Yeah. Was that him? Was that Set Source or was that number 4, Marin Cholak?
It was Set Source who got into the back. Yeah. Oh, and Set Source is dropping down the time screen again. It's not his best day here.
Not having a good time at the office, is he? Through the carousel, all popping up wide. Nobody using the wide outside line, which the jury is really out. Everybody traditionally drops in, but a lot of the GC3 drivers that race here in the 24 hours reckon it is at least as quick and much less damaging, particularly in the dry, to the car, to stay around the outside. Obviously, everybody here has decided that dropping down, it's only a 4-lap race. You don't have to do another 23.5 hours, so who cares? Car will survive. 24, Mitchell de Jong, 4th place. Again, good race weekend for him. This will be his best race weekend of the season, and he is just ahead of Alejandro Sanchez. Sanchez again, seeing that little gap to Sebastian Job, the points leader, growing fraction by fraction.
I'll tell you what, we mentioned it last week that if Mitchell de Jong didn't have bad luck, he'd have no luck at all. Well, finally, today, he seems to have had an element of good luck, getting that result in race 1 up in 3rd place. So, finally getting something go his way, he'll be hoping to make it at least a top 5 finish in this feature race. But looking further back as well, that's number 5 of Martin Kronker. He is involved with Alexander Tiber behind as well, in front of him. That queue of traffic from the race leader.
Yeah, Kronker and Tiber were nose to tail in race 1. They're nose to tail here in race 2 as well, but they're not far away from this long slipstreaming queue behind Kevin Ellis Jr., so they will get the benefit as they go down the Dottinger Hurt. They pop out of the mini carousel. Kevin Ellis Jr. with a good advantage over Patrick Holtzman at the moment. Last time in pylon it was half a second. That is much more like 8/10, 9/10. So what's happened between Holtzman and Job? Did Job have a little look? Here we go. This is like a sprint for the line in the Tour de France. They're all trying to break the toe, and the car behind obviously is following. Sort of think, why are they bothering? They're just making the straight longer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just hold your line straight. You know, we always talk about, you know, keeping the shortest distance as possible around this track, and yet here goes Job. He's looking to the inside,
and behind him as well, Alejandro Sanchez was towing right up behind the red and white car of Mitchell de Jong. Didn't get through. I was watching them. You were watching Holtzman and Job. I don't think Job got through either, did he?
No, he didn't. It does surprise me that the two Red Bull cars aren't working together here, although saying that, Job has pulled out now. He's looking to the inside.
He's put a stamp on this. He's going to send it. And Holtzman knows there's nothing he can do about it because Job's got the underlap. This is exactly how he made up 4th place. Oh, and Mitchell de Jong gets turned around, and so does Alejandro Sanchez. And behind, Mac Backham comes through it. Alejandro Sanchez loses a couple of spots. Sebastian Job did not get the drive he needed around the outside of Patrick Holtzman. Holtzman is not giving the place away. That was the perfect opportunity. Now, I wonder if they're actually shouting at each other from rig to rig, or whether they're just chatting quietly on Discord between the teammates. But either way, that was not Holtzman giving it up. That was Job trying to take second place. Holtzman wants to win this race, and he can't do that if he lets his teammate by.
Well, Holtzman still wants to get a really good result, because let's not forget, going into this round, he was 24th. He wants to automatically qualify, because the qualifiers, if you think this is competitive, the qualifiers for this championship is even greater. As we'll look at that replay then on screen, Sanchez from far back, he's not alongside Alejandro.
Well,
sorry.
In fairness, he was coming down the inside. There was lots of room to survive for Mitchell de Jong, but Mitchell de Jong went for the apex. Now, if there's a car alongside you, you can't just turn in and go for the apex. You've got to make racing room for yourself to survive. Now, I'm not sure that either of them really survived that well. Mitchell de Jong, car number 24, still Kevin Ellis Jr., who leads from Patrick Holtzman and Sebastian Job in third place. But de Jong and Sanchez both dropping down the order. It's Matt Backham who is up to fourth place now. And we're looking at this battle just a few spots further back now. They may close up on the lead group, but on the other hand, the lead group may start to pull away from them if these guys start to battle too much.
If this lead group can break that slipstream, and I think they have actually, or maybe very close to breaking that slipstream between Job and Backham, that lead group will pull away, because then Matt Backham will act as that brick in the air of not being able to catch up to those cars in front. So if they can just break that draft, break that slipstream, they'll be away and clear with the front three.
107, Thomas Tittelet almost on pole position. He was 8th place right to the last few seconds of qualifying, but obviously he didn't win out well. 7 and 57, Dane Warren ahead of Jeff Giassi. Jeff Giassi has got by, hasn't he now? Yeah. So Giassi has made a pass actually as they came on the run before we picked them up in Schwedenkreuz. So Jeff Giassi up to 14th, Dane Warren down to 15th, and behind him in 16th position, Valtteri Alander now. So that's all change. And ahead of them, Josh Rogers, by the way, behind fellow Josh and fellow Aussie, Josh Anderson. So Joshua Anderson in 11th, Josh Rogers up to 12th place.
All right. Again, is that another one where Rogers has actually made his way past? I can't quite tell from here. So here we go then, and it's Rogers and Tiber. So yeah, so Rogers has got ahead of Anderson, and that's up 8 positions now for Joshua. He's trying his best to at least keep some form of damage limitation for his championship. And
don't forget, he's doing a good job, because Alejandro Sanchez is not far ahead of him up this queue now after that contact at the beginning of the lap.
Well, no, he's further back.
Oh, he's behind him now,
down in 17th. Yeah.
All right, okay, he did drop a long way. So Josh Rogers is dealing with this like 80cc motorcycle racing, or 125s in the old days, you know, hopping along the queue, one car, and just jumping and using the toe off each of the cars to get a slingshot by and then go through against the next one.
Yes, he's doing a fantastic job. But that's a sign of a champion, though, if you're able to recover, come up through your field, as we'll have a look then at Alejandro Sanchez as well. Here's the replay again from on board. This will be quite telling to see whether, when for de Jong, he's turning in already before Sanchez is at the corner. So I'm afraid that is on Sanchez for me.
Yeah. Well, that's tough. Again, you know, Mitchell de Jong's got mirrors. Can't just turn in if somebody's alongside you. If you can't see the whole of the car behind you, then that means he's not wholly behind you. Here we go, top 3. Kevin Ellis Jr., Patrick Holtzman and Sebastian Job. Again, Job definitely had a couple of brave pills between the 2 races. You were saying when we were in the advert break after the sprint race, Paul, that it was quite a calm first race. The problem with going all gangbusters in race 1 in the sprint is then you risk everything for the feature as well. You know, then you're betting the house on 0, so you can't do that. You've got to try and mitigate some of the damage. And there's a great overhead view of just how tight that little bottleneck is at the carousel and why the carousel is such a tight corner, because the track just folds around a ridge as it continues to climb up towards the highest point on the racetrack up at Heuer.
I could tell you Alejandro Sanchez out of the race. He's pulled over and taken a tour back to the pit lane. That is one of your championship contenders out of this main feature race. The one where the real big points get paid. So huge point of the championship of, well, it's swung one way against Rogers. Now it's going back towards Rogers in terms of that second place. Yeah. But Job must be he'll be getting told this by his team manager of, you don't need to fight, you just need to keep it steady, keep where you are. You've gained some really good points.
And the deal now, even with Josh Rogers coming up towards the top 10, where he is with Alejandro Sanchez out, who had moved up into second after the sprint and after qualifying, with him out, then all Job needs to do is finish this race. Let the others do what they're doing. He's in a great place right now, and he just needs to finish. We ride on board with Josh Rogers. Joshua Anderson right in front. You said about the guys who are battling down at the top 20. At the bottom end of the top 20, 7 cars covered by 6 points. I said it was 6 cars covered by 7. It's the other way round. It's 7 cars covered by 6 points. It's very, very tight indeed. So again, all of that. And 19th place is a long way ahead as well. It's a 20-25 point gap. So it is about 20th place. There's half a dozen contenders, and all but one of them is going to be disappointed probably by the end of Monza, unless there's quite a lot of upsets higher up the order. Coming down the Dottinger, lap 2 of 4. See the main dual carriageway beside the track on the left-hand side of the drivers. And here we go. They're both going to jump by Kevin Ellis Jr., but it's only lap 2 of 4. And look who's closing in as well. That is Matt Backham, yeah. He might have something to say. Who gets through? 27 still in front. No, 22. So Sebastian Job used the double slipstream. He broke early around the outside. Holtzman had to come up inside. Sebastian Job leads. Patrick Holtzman second. Kevin Ellis Jr. third. 2 down, 2 laps to go.
Did you notice how Kevin Ellis Jr. in the lead, he didn't start weaving about the Dottinger Heuer, he just kept it nice and straight. Holtzman to the inside of Job, and Job, with the reactions, he saw him in his mirror and thought, nope, I'm not risking contact, got out the way, and here comes Ellis Jr. now. Yep. Alongside, he can't quite get his nose in there to make the move.
And all of that has allowed Mitchell de Jong to leap right up onto the back of them. Again, Mitchell de Jong now with a chance of maybe making the podium for the first time this year. His best results so far, 10th place in the 2 races at Road Atlanta. And now he's had a top 6 finish, and he is looking for a podium. And what a place to get your first podium of the season. If he could do it here on the Nordschleife in the main race, are you kidding me? That's a great way of doing it.
I hate to break it to you, Martin. It's Matt Backham who's there.
Oh, it is Matt Backham. So it is. Yeah, Mitchell de Jong dropped down, didn't he? Okay, so here we go down the Dottinger Heuer. Around the outside went Patrick Holtzman, and still getting the toe off Kevin Ellis, and a side slipstream off Holtzman. Whoop, straight by goes Sebastian Job. He had all the slingshot and he got by. And then, as he came out here, it looked like, okay, he's starting to pull away. Apparently, Paul, he wasn't pulling away quite quickly enough to stop Patrick Holtzman having a turn 1 try.
Patrick Holtzman may be getting on the team radio going, why are you braking so early for turn number 1? But that's exactly what he did. Threw it down the inside. But great awareness there from Sebastian to see in his mirrors, oh, got a car coming to the inside. Pull over to the side a little bit, and then away they go, and they managed to keep themselves 1-2 for the time being.
But that's exactly what Mitchell de Jong could have done when Alejandro Sanchez vanished from directly behind him, and he didn't. He still went for the apex. It was a racing incident between the two of them. Sanchez was having a lunge. And if Mitchell de Jong didn't see him coming, then that's another whole different ballgame. But de Jong could have survived just like Sebastian Job did there.
He
However,
could have, but when
didn't.
you're in a tighter pack and you've got many cars, he was maybe focusing on the cars in front of him, whereas Seb, he only had one car behind him. Meanwhile, Sebastian, he's looking into Schadenkraut once again, but you've got to be, I keep on saying this all the way through his broadcast, you've got to be brave to make a move there, but that's exactly what you have to be around this track. You've got to be assertive, and Patrick Holtzman was assertive into turn 1.
They're plunging down the hill into the foxhole. A little bit further back, this is a battle around 10th place, and Josh Anderson, Josh Rogers. Rogers still climbing his way up the order. This is Alexander Tiber ahead of Josh Anderson. Behind the 49 car, Jamie Fluke. So Josh Rogers has cleared all these guys. There he is just in front. So Rogers now harassing the back of Johan Hart, I guess that is. 107, Thomas Tatela, Johan Hart, Martin Kroenke. That's the 3 cars ahead of Josh Rogers. And it is 28, Alexander Tiber, who he is trying to find a way around right now. Josh Rogers in 92.
Yeah, just looking the way down so you can see de Jong just ahead of Rogers, 8th place. 2 fellow compatriots from the same team, and I would imagine there'll be some sort of working together here, but de Jong wants to get as many points as possible for himself because of him being outside of that top 20. So as much as you want to play the team game and help the teammate try and win the overall championship, you've got to be a little bit selfish at times and think about yourself, because it is just an individual drivers' championship, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. On board with Sebastian Job in 2nd place. Right ahead of us, teammate Patrick Holtzman. Kevin Ellis Jr. in the back door with Matt Backham right there as well. So it is a gang of 4, as it was in race 1. He's going the long way around the outside. Oh my goodness me. There is definitely a big tightening of the seatbelts before any lap on the Nordschleife, but Sebastian Job doing it the brave way. That was full bravery pills all the way around the outside at, what, 160 and growing, building that speed, 170, 180 miles an hour as they plunge down the hill. Fantastic stuff. What a great use of the road.
These drivers just keep on proving to us why they are the best sim racers in the whole of sim racing. The level of commitment, the professionalism that they put into the series, and the fact that they can go millimetre away from door mirrors, working up at such high speeds. You're talking over 160 miles an hour up that section of the track there. It really does. It's just impressive to see how they're able to work together.
Yeah, it really is. And you know, and that's again when Holtzman came calling down into turn 1. You've got to survive. It's not about whether or not you win one corner. It's whether about you make it through to the checkered flag, either in 1st or 2nd or 3rd or 4th. So, yeah, racing room and you know, old-fashioned racing manners, the sort that would have been very prevalent when this track was first opened, because the fatality levels were so ridiculously high, they're still really important. Not because you're risking your life, but because you need to finish the points. You've got to finish the race to get the prize. Martin Kroenke still in 5th. Kessler, de Jong and Rogers in that little queue. Josh Rogers with the black, red and white on the back of the quartet that we're looking at. And Martin Kroenke is just starting to creep away in front, isn't he?
He's got about, just over a half a second gap between him and Thomas Tetela as well. So those drivers working in that queue. But this is the point of the track where we've kept on saying it is single file. There's no real overtaking opportunities around here. You just have to have that patience. But good drive from Thomas, it must be said, because up in 7th place, he's doing a sensational job there as the driver of the 107 car.
Yeah, it's comfortably his best race weekend.
Yeah.
He's had 13th place in the main race in Barcelona as his best result, and only twice has he been in the top 20 apart from that, 17th and 18th in Brands Hatch. So yeah, a long way above where he's been so far. Our lead quartet strung out down the straight is going to take the whole of the Dottinger Heuer for Holtzman to get within shooting distance of Sebastian Job. Here we go. He's got a big slipstream. It speeds him up. He gets a few more revs, but it also slows down Job in front. So it brings the driver in front back towards you. Through Antonius Bucher and into the Tiergarten. And he is close enough to think about a move down into the first corner again. Let's see if he can make something of this, or if Kevin Ellis Jr. in third place or Matt Backham in fourth can pick up some pieces. Because in fact, it looked as though Ellis Jr. might be enough, close enough to have a little lunge. He thinks so too. Not quite enough for an overlap. Sebastian Job again out very wide, making sure he gives himself room. And also looking for a good drive out of the second part there of that little right-left chicane, just to keep himself out of harm's reach as they start to head on down through the Yokohama S's.
As yeah, they were hitting 275 kilometers an hour down the Dottinger Heuer was Patrick Holtzman in that slipstream, so he really was getting a good slipstream. We've had an instant further back as well. Here's the replay of Carl Janssen and Ricardo Castrolado. So looking back from Janssen here on the camera roof, and just have a look, see what's happened, and it's Castrolado into the back of him. Both of them into the wall. That was a bit ambitious, I feel, from Ricardo, and it's caused some damage to the car of Janssen. In fact, Janssen's pulled it over and taken the tow back to the pits. Oh, now timing screen, Martin. Joshua Rogers has dropped down the order here.
Oh, okay.
11th.
Well, yeah, mine's showing 11th as well, so he's back behind. Oh no,
He was in 8th place at one point, so he has dropped down a couple of hot spots here.
So Alexander Tiber, Jamie Fluker ahead of him. Now, is that just a timing glitch? There's the 92 car.
No, there's Fluke in front of him.
Yeah.
So he's definitely fallen behind here.
So he had a little lunge down into turn one on the Grand Prix loop and made a mistake as the car run wide. Josh Rogers around the outside of 107. Thomas Tatler gets on the grass. Is there contact? No, so far it's all good.
Oh, that's squeezing though.
Into the Yokohama S's, drifts out wide. Cones bite the dust, and he comes back on without hitting the barriers. And luckily for him, on the Grand Prix circuit, there is runoff. So, yeah, that was. He's had 2 get-out-of-jail cards. He's earned 1 by picking up all those places and driving himself back into substantial points, but that was definitely more luck than judgment the way he came back on, I think. So good news for Josh Rogers. Sebastian Job, the race leader, and Patrick Holtzman has got more things to worry about than his teammate now. The 27 car with Kevin Ellis Jr. right behind him with those blue highlights in 98. Matt Backham is there waiting to pick up the pieces. Looking at Jeff Chiassi in 15th. The number 7 car facing Christopher Dambeats just ahead of Valtteri Arlander. Those two were battling all the way through the previous race as well.
Yeah, that we saw in race 1 with Kevin Ellis Jr. how he was able to hang with Holtzman and tried to make a move on the last lap of the sprint race. Wasn't quite able to do it, but these drivers, they're again fighting tooth and nail further down New Field for 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. They've also got in front of them Anderson, Fluke, Rogers, Tiber. So it's a big train of cars, is this, all battling out for that 9th spot.
Yeah, Chiassi with 4 top 6 finishes this year, but predominantly it's been the sort of 15 to 20 mark. So we're around 10th, 12th, 15th most of the races, with a few down in 18th, 19th position. Only one non-score in his season, though, Jeff Gyasi, who's been pretty consistent in finishing the races. And again, you don't score if you're sat in the pits watching everybody else stream by. So that's a really major part of making sure that you're in the, you know, he's in 8th place in the championship. He'll jump Tommy Østgaard this weekend. So he'll be up probably, yeah, he'll be up to 7th place. He was only 9 points behind Østgaard. You can't argue with that. Final lap, we're out in the forests surrounding the Castle Nürburg. Again, on board with the 98 car, just pushing with everything that you can find, every ounce of concentration. Kevin Ellis Jr. trying desperately to stay in touch with the lead duo, Sebastian Job and Patrick Holtzman. But Kevin Ellis Jr. now not escaping from the attentions of Matt Backham. Car number 16, looking for a podium finish. Matt Backham going the long way around the outside, trying to Sebastian Job line. He didn't start that move early enough, though, Paul, so he has to drop back into position. Kevin Ellis Jr. hanging on.
But is he in the prime position, though, for down the Dottinger Heuer on the last lap? Because they've dropped back that little bit now from the leaders. Kevin Ellis Jr. could get a podium here still with the draft down that back long. How long is the Dottinger Heuer? I keep getting how. It's to write it down. It's long.
It's a mile. It's nearly 2 kilometres, in fact. And you're right. Matt Backham being in front is in the weaker position. It's a little bit like if you're in junior single seaters that don't have a lot of power. In F3, for instance, if you go too early up the Kemmel Straight, then your rival gets a chance to tow back past you. So Kevin Ellis Jr. has to judge this really finely to try and get back past Matt Backham. He's got to be close enough to get the tow and use it, but not so much that he's forced to breathe off the throttle and slow himself down for fear of going too soon. So it's a really fine art, and it's not something you can really practice on your own. You really need to be doing it with lots of cars around you, or at least other drivers around you who are unpredictable in the way that AI so often isn't in situations like that.
Yeah, it is a tricky art form. It's one of the dark arts around this track, and that's why you get so many specialists around this track suddenly just find them. So you see it at the Nürburgring 24 or the VLN races as well. They just have those specialists who know this track like the back of their hand, and they come to the fore.
And it's a feeling, being able to sense where is the right time in the right place. That's experience. It's all experience. We're coming up to some of the fastest racetrack in Germany right now. Sebastian Job leads by getting on for a 2.5 seconds now from Patrick Holtzman. The deal is done for victory. It is now about 3rd place. We're in 3rd place. We pop out of Schwalbenschwanz, and then we'll go right on to the Dottinger Heuer. And from here, Kevin Ellis Jr. is going to try and tow up behind Matt Backham. Here we go. It's a long, 6th gear. Just listen to the revs rise. You'll be doing 165, 170 miles an hour now, and the needle creeping in. Look at he's deep in the red. He still hasn't hit the limiter though, and he's nearly there, past the tourist fire and entrance on the right-hand side there. Still not got an overlap. It's not going to happen, is it? Matt Backham had enough in the straight to just hang on. Sebastian Job is going to win this. It'll be win number 6 of the season for the Aussie, for the Brit. And in 2nd place will be Patrick Holtzman. 3rd at the line. The drag race goes to Matt Backham. Kevin Ellis Jr. in 4th. And where is Josh Rogers going to come across the line? We're showing him still as in that battle around the top 10. 9th place, the checkered flag for Josh Rogers.
I think we just caught a glimpse in the back of one of those shots in the Tiergarten. Max Benecke heading off there at that corner once again. And he dropped down a couple of positions, down to 19th in the end as they crossed the line.
Oh boy, has he got some sort of Tiergarten barrier magnet attached to the car. That's really tough. So Sebastian Job, win number 6 of the season. And another fat 50 points goes into the pile. Well, he was battling with Jeff Giassi, we think. So, yeah, you know, when it's not your day, and we've said that about a couple of drivers already, it's not your day, Paul. Max Benecke.
So, yeah, Giassi and Benecke. Let's have a look to see what happened between the two of them. And again, it's almost deja vu. Heading in to the Tiergarten. And they're still side by side. So at least Benecke hasn't... Oh, there's a nasty bump there on the left. And he took off over that bump there. That's cost him 1-2 spots then in the end as that one. But you could see how that car actually took off over that bump on the inside.
Yeah, and Graham Carroll was... lucky to get away with that one, because that was the Red Bull car that came streaming through that if he'd lost control, that would have been the one that he picked up. Well, Connery, let's talk to our race winner then.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a Red Bull Racing Esports 1-2 in that main event. And we do have Sebastian Job in the commentary box with us. Seb, it seems like this season is looking pretty golden at the moment. Another race win under your belt.
Yeah, really good result. I'm absolutely shocked by that, if I'm honest. I wasn't at all confident going into today, but it's Nordschleife, anything can happen, and I think anything that good that could have happened to me kind of did. I got very lucky, and then just kind of picked my way through slowly and surely, making sure not to go for any stupid moves or something that could wipe me out. So just being very careful and patient, and it paid off in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's another stellar drive from you. Of course, you had some interesting moments with your teammates, especially heading down in towards turn number 1. What happened there? Because I hear rumors that Patrick immediately apologized on the driver chat for that one. I'm pretty sure it wasn't intentional. What was your view?
I heard something on the driver chat, but I have no idea what it was, so I'm going to assume it was an apology. But you know, it was like our practice races together. You know, he's dive bombing me from half a second back. No, but it's fine. I'm pretty sure he apologized straight away. It's just a mistake. It happens. But honestly, it did feel like a bit of a practice race near the end, because every time we were always going side by side into that last little bit, and we had the exact same in this race, so that was quite fun, albeit a little bit scary. But yeah, no, it was good fun. That
there's another situation well, in this race weekend to what you had at Spa, with you at the front leading the thing in that leading pack, excuse me, and well, your championship contenders behind having all sorts of issues. You'd be forgiven for thinking they make it look easy for you.
I just kind of focus on myself, do my best, which is to try and get a win. And you know, when you're leading the championship, you can afford to not take these risks. But I know that if I'm in second or third in the championship, I'm going to have to take some more risks, and that's much more likely to not work out. And I think that's kind of the reason that I'm having these strong results, is because, you know, under the pressure, you have to take these big risks, and they don't always work out, and that's kind of what's happened to Josh and Alex, I think.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Seb, and congratulations on yet another feature race win here. Another $1,000 in your back pocket. Always good to see. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, that was Sebastian Job, feature race winner, championship leader at the moment here in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. Before we move on, though, we do have Will Vincent. He's back.
I am. Hello. Good afternoon. What a couple of rounds of the championship we've had here, Connery. I mean, we've had drama and chaos once again, but Red Bull Racing Esports, P1, P2, once again. We're going to talk to Patrick Holtzman in just a moment's time, but this Red Bull Racing Esports team, I was just saying to some other colleagues that Joe doesn't have a hand yet on the championship, but maybe at least a couple of fingers.
Yeah, absolutely is. You know, Patrick Holtzman as well, giving him a fair fight at the end, but I'm pretty sure he'll want to speak a couple of words.
Yeah, indeed. So we have got Patrick Hartman here right now. So Patrick, it's been a great day for you overall. P1, P2 for Red Bull Racing Esports. What a weekend it's been for that team. But talk us through that feature race and talk us through the battles that you're having with Sebi at the end.
Yo, hi. First of all, I'm glad to be here again after a while. Yeah, great day for the team. Obviously, Graham with the penalty was always going to be compromised, but me and Seb got the most out of the package, so that was pretty nice. And yeah, so I thought today is my day. You know, you're coming after that sprint win, and then you see Seb behind you, and you know about the championship situation. But I thought, you know, today maybe I'm a bit stubborn, or how do you say it? Egoistic? No. I'm a bit selfish, I wanted to say. But I was always gonna be not battle him like other people. I knew about the championship standings. I was giving him a fair fight, but at the end of the day, he was just faster than me, and I tried to hold on through the last sectors, but he just gapped me there, and I couldn't get a run anymore. But I'm more than happy with P2 after such a horrible season for me. You know, it all started so terrible in Sanford with the pole position and then all the failures that I had. So, you know, I really needed this one, not for standings, but for myself, you know, to feel good again. That's the kind of job that I need to do more often, you know. And I felt bad at times, you know, when Seb does all these, when he has all these good races, and I can't give him the support that he needs, you know. And that's what I did today. That's what I need to do more often, you know. Be there, give him the championship support, and not let him be alone, you know, amongst all the Coanda cars and all the others.
Now, you talk about having to do this race for yourself, but you were 24th entering this weekend. You, of course, have now moved up in terms of the championship, and that takes you inside of the top 20, which, of course, if you finish there, means that you don't have to run in the Pro Series later on this year. How important is that top 20 finish going to be for you if you're able to hold on the next two races?
It literally has zero importance to me. You know, this season is a disaster, and whether it's 24th or 10th or 15th, you know, that doesn't make a difference to me. I thought for myself that maybe going through the Pro Series is something that I maybe enjoy, but you know, if I can avoid it, so be it. I just want to have a good couple last races. Just do what I can do, what I can. I've proven it today. I need to prove it more often, and you know, a better season will come up next year. That's all that matters.
Well, thank you very much there, Patrick
Thank you.
Holtzman, Red Bull Racing Esports. And Connery, that's an interesting point now that Patrick almost put this season to one side, but a strong result can always help you in terms of not only momentum, but confidence in this series.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's sort of the injection of good results that Patrick Holtzman really need, because we know exactly how much pace that he has behind the wheel, but the stars haven't aligned for him so far this season. So if this is a sign of things to come, then that Red Bull Racing Esports team is going to be a force to be reckoned with through the final 2 rounds of the season. But we have someone else in for an interview. That is Mac Backham, finishing on the podium here today. 3rd place in the feature race, 6th place in the sprint race. Mac, how is the racing out there? Because it seemed like you're involved in quite a bit in that feature.
Yeah, it was quite a hectic race, especially in the feature, I would say. It was really dangerous in front of me when Alejandro went. I think he went really wide. I didn't really see what happened. I think he went wide into turn 1 and kind of took Mitchell out again. But yeah, after that, I was a little far back from the top 3, and Johan right behind me, so I was pushing really, really hard to catch up to the top 3, because I knew, at least from those 3, Sebi was probably a little bit faster than me, so I really needed to hang on to the draft to have a chance. And yeah, I mean, finally a good result in the season, so I can't complain too much.
Yeah, I was just about to pick you up on that, because the season hasn't been ideal for you. You had a couple of top 10 finishes here and there, but this is your first podium, your first top 5 as well in the season. So you're looking to bring that positive attitude into the final 2 rounds?
Well, I mean, I always have a positive attitude, I would say, for every round. But yeah, I hope we can carry this momentum over. I feel like every week, basically, I've been really fast in practice, but it never really materialized in any of the races, just due to my own mistakes in qualifying, mostly not getting yet far up the grid. Today was luckily different, and yeah, I hope the next 2 races are going to be kind of the same thing. Hopefully, a win in there, ideally, but yeah, I'll take a P3 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you're on the sort of, well, coming into this event, you're on the edge of the top 10, just inside it, in that 10th spot. Is that the target for the end of the season now?
Well, I don't know really what the target is. I have to look at the points properly after this. After this race, I definitely want to be like, let's say, a bit more away from P10. I want to be a bit further up, but I have to see how close I am to like Tommy, Jeff, and those guys, because they're a little bit far up ahead. I guess I have good points this round, and I don't really know what they did, so I really have to look at it. But yeah, the further up, the better is my goal.
And I think you're one of the guys in the team house for that VRS Coanda car. Well, how was the reaction from Josh after the incident, shall we say, in the sprint race?
I don't really know. I haven't really spoken to him. He's doing his interviews now for our own Twitch broadcast on the Virtual Racing School Twitch. So I haven't really spoken to him because I came here right away. So I'll have to speak to him in a little bit.
There we go. We'll see any social media postings a little bit later on. But thank you very much for joining us, Mac.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
All right, Mac Backham finishing in 3rd place in that feature race. And, well, another instance of a driver getting a good result here today, whereas they haven't had the most positive season so far. Holtzman in that one, Backham as well.
Yeah, indeed. So it's been a good day for Matt Backham, a good day for a couple of drivers. And I also just want to note the fact that Apex Racing Team, of course, getting a couple of good places, 4th and 5th as well. The results are up on your screen. Sebastian Job from the United Kingdom from 1.2 seconds there ahead of Patrick Holtzman from Germany. Matt Backham from the Netherlands in 3rd place, and Kevin Ellis Jr., the Scotsman, in 4th, and Johan Harp, the Frenchman, rounding out your top 5. Mitchell de Jong in P number 6, Martin Kroenke, Thomas Tattler, Josh Rogers, and Alexander Thebe round out your top 10. Remainder of the results up on your screen right now. I want to quickly, Connie, I've got 3 things I want to talk about before we go off there. Number 1, we've got to talk about Apex, because we remember the first time we went to Circuit de la Sarthe, they were very strong there. They had a good result here today in terms of the Nordschleife. They, in 3 weeks' time, when we go to Le Mans, they are going to be one of these teams that we've got to pay a lot of attention to.
Yeah, it certainly is. Kevin Ellis Jr., Johan Harp, they were completely very, very strong in this race. Kevin Ellis Jr. getting himself a podium in that sprint race, of course. Johan improving a couple of positions to grab 5th in the feature race. So it's something that I've been talking about over the past week. Apex is starting to come alive in the back end of this season, and with a resurgence of some of the Red Bull drivers like Patrick Holtzman as well, is going to get pretty spicy at the top of the fields here. And with the Le Mans race incoming, where Apex have been typically strong, it could be one of them taking the race wins there.
Point number 2, there's been a couple of drivers here today who have really been able to get themselves some finishes that they needed to get into top 20 contention, and I think that's going to be really important. Patrick Holtzman, for example, Mitch de Jong, as an example, heading into the last 2 rounds of the championship, knowing how close it is in that mid-pack right now, and knowing the chaos that we might see in the next 2 rounds, how important do you think it is for those drivers to have a solid, good result here today to kind of set the stage for the remainder of the championship?
Well, for the majority of them, they don't really have a choice in that aspect. You don't want to be going through that pro qualifier if you can help it, because there are some very, very hungry drivers and teams in that series that want to get to this level of competition, and you can't just rely on having a mediocre season in this to try and carry you through that. It's not going to happen. It's the same amount of effort in that series compared to this one. So coming into the final 2 rounds, if you're one of those drivers on the bubble, you got to be looking at trying to push for positions every single event now from here on out, because otherwise you're going to have to go through that grueling process.
Yeah, and the final point is that we started today with 8 drivers mathematically in terms of championship contention. That has gone down, but Sebastian Job, according to our mathematics at least, now has a race in hand over Josh Rogers. Rogers was at one point down to 3rd place in the championship after the sprint race, but because of Alejandro Sanchez's incident, Rogers goes back up into 2nd place in the championship, but is now sizably behind Sebastian Job. If you're Red Bull Racing Esports, what do you tell your drivers heading into the next 2 rounds of the championship?
Well, Seb's championship comes above all else, at least if I was a team manager for Red Bull Racing Esports. Not exactly sure how the drivers feel about that one, but we'll definitely get to see how that will unfold in Le Mans. September 26th is going to be the next race of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup, and the season is coming to a head, but Job, he can't be complacent at the front here. We saw how in last year's competition, how the massive lead that Joshua Rogers had started to get a little thin by the end of the season. Job can't afford the same thing to happen here this year.
Indeed so, and that's a little preview that we just saw of where we'll be in 3 weeks' time. Circuit de la Sarthe, Le Mans, Mythique as they call it. But hey, that is all of our coverage here today for the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing from the legendary Green Hell Nordschleife. Thank you, of course, as ever, to our commentators, Martin Haven and Paul Smith. Also to my co-host, Conor Maddock, and all the people working hard behind the scenes, Drew, Cisco, Tim, Jay, and Justin, and the rest of them. Thank you for all the work that you put into the series as well. As I said, we'll be back in 3 weeks' time at Le Mans, as we've got 2 rounds of the championship to go, and Sebastian Job is inching closer to his first ever World Championship. What happens next? Well, you have to see. Goodbye from the Nordschleife, and thanks for watching.